Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. You might have seen this new product. It's called Hydro Sublimation Sheets by Craft Express, or PYD Life is calling them sublimation pattern paper. So it's basically kind of like tissue paper printed with sublimation ink, and it is supposed to make it easier to do full wrap tumblers that have some kind of taper, like this 40-ounce guy. So I thought I would put these products to the test on several different blanks, see how they work, do I like them, and do I think they're worth it or not. So first let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use and how to use these to sublimate on various blanks. The supplies you're going to need are as follows. So I like to cut these sheets with a cutting mat, ruler, and a rotary cutter. We will be applying some shrink sleeves, so you'll need a heat gun, heat resistant mat, as well as a heat source. Because I am going to use the heat gun and shrink wrap sleeves on some odd blanks, I am going to use my sublimation oven. Then you'll need some heat tape, and I do recommend a roll of heat tape that is stretchy for one of these portions. And I will try to find the source for this one and link to it. I just kind of took every heat tape I had and tested it to see which one stretched the most. Then some twine, a flexible tape measure, the Hydro Sublimation transfers themselves, and we'll talk more about these in just a second. Some blanks, and I have a couple of different blanks, including like the 40-ounce Stanley size tumbler, and then this is a sublimation sippy cup. You'll need heat-resistant gloves, as well as a lint-free cloth to clean your blanks. And then you'll need some water, as well as a paintbrush for this method. You can buy these sheets a few different places. This version is from Craft Express. These versions here are from PYD Life, and you can actually see on this sheet here just how many different patterns that PYD Life has. So there is probably something for everyone. Now these sheets are similar to infusible ink, however they are very thin. They're almost like tissue paper. They do come on a roll. There is several feet on this roll. Looks like this version from Craft Express is 40 feet long. So a lot of material to work with. And they are 15 inches wide, so very wide to work with as well. Now we will be cutting these to size. Now because the paper is super delicate, you will want to be careful with this. However, we are going to wet it down so it will form to the sublimation blanks. The benefit of this is that it kind of forms around your sublimation blank and enables you to get full bleed tumblers and other projects easily. Now this side is the ink side. So you'll have like a dull side and a bright side. The bright side is what you'll want up against your sublimation blank. The dull side is the back, but because it is so thin, you can see through it. So now let's take a look at cutting these to size. So we're going to start with the easiest, and that is something that is fairly straight. So you can see this doesn't have a ton of taper and would be a straight sublimation blank. So we want to remove anything that can't go in the oven. And then we want to measure this blank. And I will link to this particular tape measure in the description below this video. It is very handy for measuring things that are a circle. So you just put this through there and pull it tight. And this is almost 9 inches. Then we'll want to measure the height. And I like to use this tape measure intended for a sewing machine, and it's about 5 inches. So 9 by 5. You may want to cut this a little oversized, but not a lot. So I'm going to cut it first the 5 inches, and I'm going to make it 5 1/4. So I'll just line that up on my cutting mat, and straight cuts are much better with this material. So be sure everything is straight. And then the material is so thin that you can see the lines of your cutting mat right through the material. This makes it easy to cut. And then I just use a rotary blade with the ruler. Because this is so long, I did not get out my long cutting mat, and I'm just going to trim the rest off. So now we have a piece about 5 1/4. And now you'll see that there are white strips on both sides. So the first thing we're going to do is cut off that strip. Next we were about 9 inches, so we're going to go with 9 1/4. and cut this to size. Now we have a sheet that is ready to be applied to this tumbler. Before we apply it to our tumbler, let's flip it over to the back, and I'm going to use the trick that I use for my sublimation seams. And so on one of the short ends, I am going to apply heat resistant tape. And I got it fairly straight, but we are going to cut it off. And first I'm going to trim both ends of the tape. Now we have tape on the back of one end. I'm just going to use my mat and rotary cutter to get a straight edge on this side. So now I have a straight edge on that taped side as well. So next I just want to clean the tumbler well. You can use rubbing alcohol. Make sure there's no dirt or debris on the tumbler. And then the rest of this process is probably going to go against everything I've ever mentioned about sublimation, but this is how you use those sheets. So I have some water and a paintbrush. I have the side that I'm going to put against the tumbler, and I'm going to wet it well with water and the paintbrush. Yes, these are called hydro sublimation transfers for a reason. They use water for the process itself, which is different from most other things that I sublimate. Now we want to line this up, and we're going to start with the edge that has the tape, and we want to get this as straight as possible on this with as few wrinkles as possible. So I just kind of like to pull it and roll it. And because this is wet already, you can adjust this very easily. You can pull out wrinkles. You can even wet the back more to make it even more pliable. So I just keep adjusting it until I get it just like I want it. So that looks really good. So I'm going to continue the process all the way around the tumbler. Now this has a step here for this lip, and because these sheets are so thin and now we've wet them, they just sort of fall right into that gap. So this will result in a very good transfer. And you can keep wetting this as you go along. Make sure everything lays down flat. And then here at the end, this end should go over the taped end. Now I did get crooked because I can see some white here. So I'm going to go back and readjust this. So you just want to continue, readjust until you get this perfect onto your blank. And that time this worked really well. So now I'm just going to ensure everything looks good. And I'm going to use a few pieces of tape to hold this into place. First of all, at the top, where the two pieces meet, sort of wrap it over. Then I'll use one more piece here at the bottom where they join. Because this is wet, your tape is not going to want to stick very well. So the next thing we're going to do, this stretchy tape, I'm going to do a very long piece. Tape may not stick to this wet surface, but it will stick to itself. So we're going to start at the top. I'm going to stick it right here in the center. I'm going to pull as I lay the tape down and go all the way around, sticking the tape to itself as I come back around. And now I'm going to repeat that on this bottom surface. So long piece of tape, stick it to the other tape that's already there. Now this is probably going to wrinkle a little bit. Remember, there was a step on the bottom. I am going right around where that step is so I can pull this as tight as possible. And then get around to the other side and stick it down to itself. And because this is a smaller diameter slightly on the end, I'm going to do this one more time, just right on the end, pulling as I go along. And now this is completely wrapped. So now let's talk about adding the sublimation shrink sleeve. So now we'll just add this. Yes, it's still wet. We're going to add it to a sublimation shrink sleeve. Just place it into the sleeve. And I am being careful. The wet paper is fairly delicate, so you do want to be careful handling this at this point. Then once you have it inside, I'm going to use a heat gun to shrink it. So I am going to cut the sound in this because you don't want to hear the heat gun, but just run the heat gun until everything shrinks and there are no bubbles or wrinkles. Now you'll just add this to your sublimation oven for the time and temperature recommended for whatever sublimation blank you're using. So this product does not change the time or the temperature or the sublimation instructions. So I went ahead and cut the piece for my next blank, but I did want to note that when you're doing a blank like this, measure in the widest portion of the blank. So this one I measured here. And then the second thing is when I mentioned taking everything off that might melt, in this case you take the handle off of this, it just attaches with screws. So I went ahead and took that off as well. So now we need to wrap this one. So first I'm going to clean it well. And I have the print cut as well as that piece of tape added, just like I did for the other blank. Just lay this print out and add some water, again with the paintbrush. For blanks that are uneven like this, I would recommend starting in whatever area is the widest. So the top is the widest in this case. So I'm going to start at the top, and I like pressing this first portion up against the handle area, or the handle if the blank has a handle. So I'm going to try to locate this. So I'm going to treat this first portion just like I did that sippy cup. So I'm going to treat it like it's flat at first, and then we'll worry about this area at the bottom later. Also wanted to note, when you're measuring the length on these or the height, be sure that you go with the curve. That's why I use that tape measure. That is adjustable, so be sure to lay it down with the curve as well. Here I'm just using my brush to sort of push out some of these wrinkles. I have it on there pretty straight, but I want to make sure it's tight and all the wrinkles are out. Once I worked back over here to where these brackets for the handles are, I can cut the paper so it kind of works its way around those little brackets. So I'm just gonna use the cuts, maybe tear the paper some more, and lay it down. Again, I want it to be over the top of this tape here. And I find it helps to secure as I go here. So this upper portion looks good. It's fairly secure with this tape. Now I need to worry about the lower portion. What I like to do is just really get it wet until it starts to form around these curves. So once it gets really wet, the paper will just start to form. I will say these wrinkles at the bottom, it's going to form wrinkles. The diameter of the bottom is obviously smaller than the top, so that material has to go somewhere. And those wrinkles, we will see them in our final design. So I will show you that at the end. And it's just sort of something that happens with this product, I find. Now, I do like to, if you'll notice, I'm doing kind of a watercolor print on this one. The more graphic the print, the more you can see it, I feel like. So if I stick with something that is fairly abstract, you don't see the wrinkles as much, and to me it looks better. So now I'm just gonna, everything's really wet, and I'm just gonna work on forcing this print down. And you want it to basically follow the curve of the tumbler. That way there's print everywhere. All right, now I'm gonna get this green tape out again. I'm gonna start at the top, start where it joins. Again, pull tight, taping this down as I go. You may want to repeat this on this one a couple places where these handle brackets are. As I mentioned, like I added some tape just to hold it while I was working, but the tape doesn't like to stick to the water-filled sheet. So wrapping it around and sticking it to itself is going to be your best bet. So I'm going to do that in a few places, and then we'll tackle this lower portion. For this lower portion, I'm leaving the tape on a roll. I'm going to start up here under this handle. We're literally going to wrap this entire bottom portion. So you want to tape it crooked so that it goes so that you can go down as you tape. So we're gonna pull it, turn your tumbler, and then it'll go over the top of itself here. And then you just wanna keep wrapping all the way down, pulling as tight as you can. So our goal here is to get that print down onto our tumbler with the tape. And that's why I like a stretchy tape. And yes, I'm probably going to use a lot of tape here, but I find that makes the best tumblers in this case. Then once I get to the bottom, I'm just going to cut this off. And we're going to really squeeze this, push it down here at the bottom. The bottom is going to be critical. I feel like the top does well every time, but the bottom takes some practice getting right. Now that everything is covered, I'm going to add shrink wrap to this one in the same way I did the other one. So the shrink wrap is first, and then we're gonna come back and do the twine. So I mentioned twine in my supply list, and this area right here is what the twine is for. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the shrink sleeve. I did cut out around these brackets with my shrink sleeve so I could get everything really, really tight. Now the critical area of this is going to be where these two diameters meet. So this area right here. So I am going to add some twine, and this is just plain regular twine. I'll hold it, and I am going to really, really pull this and make sure this gets super tight. So I'm gonna wrap this several times and tie it very, very tightly. This gets the best results I find, and I have seen people use different things here, but I like the twine because I can get it really, really tightly onto this surface. So just use some twine, wrap it around. You can trim the ends if you want. And this one is ready to add to your sublimation oven. Remember, the time and the temperature for these sheets is the same, so use the time and temperature for the blank that you purchased. Once you remove it from the sublimation oven, you're gonna wanna remove the shrink wrap when it's hot so it removes easily. So use some heat resistant gloves to remove everything, remove the tape, remove that sublimation paper, and you have a gorgeous tumbler. Once it's cool, you can add the lid back, the handle in this case. Now I want to take a look at some results and talk to you about the paper I use for each one. I did not see any difference between the Craft Express and the PYD Life version. So this is the Craft Express, and it's called Purple Marble. You can see that it looks really good. You might be able to see my seam running down under my handle here. However, if you will notice in this area, you can see where it was wrinkled up. Now with this marble print, you don't see it as bad, but it still looks like it was wrinkled when you sublimated it. I did not find a way to get rid of that. Now I did want to note one other thing. Because this sublimation paper is so thin, you can't really cut it with a Cricut machine like you could in Fusible ink. However, you could apply vinyl on this area or any area of whatever blank you're using, then cover it with your Hydro Sublimation Transfer just like I've shown. Peel the vinyl off at this stage once everything has sublimated, and you would be left with a white area that your vinyl had covered up. So if you want to add designs to these Hydro Sublimation tumblers, that would be the way to do that. Next up, also from Craft Express, is this blue zebra. This one, the seam is here and it's almost invisible. The pattern lined up pretty well on this one, so I really loved the way this one turned out. Now the best part of these Hydro Sublimation Transfers is that the bottoms look so good. Like that bottom looks perfect. So the bottoms and tops on these, especially with something straight like this, looks amazing. Then from PYD Life, this is called Purple Leopard. Now the seam on this, I mean, while it looks good, the two colors met, so you can definitely see the seam. However, if you'll look in this area where we had that slightly smaller diameter, this seam looks amazing. So the sublimation on this one looks great, even though it was slightly smaller in this area than through here. So I was really impressed with the way this one turned out. Then this is also from PYD Life, and it's called Pink Marble. And I wanted to do something that basically doesn't have a straight side at all. So this one is tapered up towards the top, comes in really wide here, tapers down to the bottom. I ended up taping this with that green tape all the way down because it literally is not straight at any point. Here's my seam on this one, and you can see all the wrinkles. So there's wrinkles at the top as well as the bottom. And while this looks great, if you're not a fan of those wrinkles being on your sublimation tumblers, this one might not be for you. And I did want to show you one more, and this was one of my experiments that failed. Of course, I had good and bad ones and finally come up with a method that worked. This is what happened when I left off that twine around where the tumbler meets. And you can see how wide it looks and how just poorly sublimated in this area. So definitely don't leave off that twine. Tie it really tight so you get the best sublimation possible in this area. So now you've seen my results. Is this product worth it or not? So I will say that sublimating on any of these with a full wrap. So this wine glass, I chose it on purpose. This 40-ounce tumbler with this taper here. Doing a full wrap on these is extremely difficult with regular sublimation paper. There are some people that do it, and I really do think it's an art. So I will say that if you are looking for a product that makes it easier to do full wraps on things like this, this product might be something you want to give a try. However, you do need to be okay on these tapered blanks with that wrinkled looking effect after it's sublimated. The ones that were straight, however, I really loved the way those turned out. However, I could probably do something similar with sublimation paper or infusible ink. However, I showed you the edge of these. It makes getting a perfect, clean, crisp edge extremely easy. And on something like this little sippy cup here, where it was just slightly tapered at the bottom, I probably never would have gotten a perfect looking sublimation blank with regular sublimation paper or infusible ink. There probably would have been some kind of white around this small little indent here. But with this paper, I was able to force it into that indentation and get that perfect looking tumbler. Then I discussed a little bit about how you could add designs on these as well, adding vinyl underneath that sublimation paper layer. So I do think it is a viable alternative for those of you that either don't have a sublimation printer or that want to experiment and get the full wrap designs on something like this 40-ounce tumbler with the taper, or this wine tumbler that is doesn't have a flat surface on it. So if you've ever wanted to do full wraps on things like this, struggle with it with other methods, this product might just be something you want to try. It's also pretty fun, actually, and I got some really bright and vibrant designs, and I was super excited about that. So if you just have some time, you want to give a product a try, you want to have some fun creating some sublimation blanks, family and friends, I think this would be a great product to give a try. So break out that sublimation oven, your hydro sublimation paper, and get started making some tumblers, sippy cups, water bottles, this 40-ounce tumbler, whatever you have in mind. Now, can this only be used for hard surfaces? I did find one video as I was doing my research where they had used it on other blanks, including shirts. I did not give that a try. I don't think you would have to wet it for something like a shirt. I think the act of wetting it for these tumblers was to make it form fit to this hard surface. For something like a shirt, I think you could lay it down, just cover it with protective paper and heat press it. But I really don't think, this paper is so thin, I don't think you're gonna have good luck cutting it with a Cricut machine. So that would mean that you would have to cut it by hand. So you could definitely play with it on other surfaces. I feel like, it's sublimation ink on paper, but I think a better application of it are things like these tumblers. So hopefully that helped you explain what this is and how to use it. If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video and it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.